Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for today's card I am going to use some Spellbinders dies, some hot foiling that I've already done, and then use the dies to cut that out. And I've got some embossing folders, I've got some movers and shapers from the old days, and I've got a few card bases. Ignore my cat, he is running riot in my in my room. So to start with, I have embossed a piece of purple cardstock, and I'm using the oxide ink in carved pumpkin and just dragging that over the top of the embossed, and it just gives that raised area a nice look, and it sort of brings that to the forefront. I'm going to use the same ink to help stencil, using the die, the Spellbinders die, and stencil the ink around the edges, and this will give it sort of a kind of like a layered look without there being an extra layer on that piece of cardstock. So you'll see that in a second once we've got the ink on around the edges. So I'm just using a blending brush for this, and apologies if I'm a bit distracted, but my cat's driving me mad today, so this is why I usually don't have him in here when I'm doing voiceovers. So just getting that ink on around the edges, and again, because you've got a blending brush, you can go as light as you want, or keep adding the amount of ink to get a look that you want on there. So now that I've done that, if I take the die off, you can see there's a nice outline border where the die was held in place, and I did actually run these through and emboss using the dies as well. That's a nice thing and really good thing about Spellbinders dies. You can't see the embossing bit on the video, but it is there. So I'm also, in case I haven't said this already, which I don't think I would have because of the cat, I'm also making 3 cards today. So if you stick around to the end, you'll see a close-up of each of them. But I also sprayed some water, or spritzed some water over the top of this, just to give a bit of texture, and oxides will always react like all distressings. So I did that, and then just sort of used a paper towel or a cloth to mop up the excess. Once I've done that, I'm going to use some pretty strong tape on the back of the embossed piece, and you want it to be pretty strong just because you've got an embossed piece of cardstock that tends to want to pop up if there's not enough adhesive. So a wet adhesive would work really well as well, but if you're using a tape, just make sure you go all the way around the edges and you should be good. Then for my little foiled sentiment, I'm going to put like a million pop dots on here because that's how I roll. And I will pop this up sort of, I suppose, in the top center of the card. Or do I go in the center? No, in the center of the card. And just popping that up. And then I will get the bats popped up as well, just with a tiny little piece of foam tape as well. I don't know if I said, but these dies and hot foil plates are all Spellbinders, and except the movers and shapers for the bats on this card. But the hot foiling is all the Spellbinders hot foil plates from Halloween, like a Halloween collection from a couple of years ago, I think it was. Very cool, and I think I did a video showcasing them and actually showing you the hot foiling process. So if you want to check that out, that'd be awesome. Just look for my Halloween playlist and they'll be in there. So those are my 2 little bats on there. They're from the movers and shapers from forever ago, from Tim Holtz Alterations. So onto the second card, I'm going to use Dusty Concord. I'm going to use a Halloween embossing folder, and I actually embossed the front of this card for something different. I don't normally do that because I don't actually like doing that. And then I have a sentiment that I made like a whole bunch of sentiments. I hot foiled a whole load of them. They're also from, all of these are from the Spellbinders collection, these hot foils. and also these little skeletons, and it's like a little ghost girl. I don't know why I think it's a girl, but so as in the previous one, we're going to use the Spellbinders. These are the large and small of the circle dies that they have. I don't know if they still have these particular ones, but they must have a circle die, I'm sure, still. And I've had these for many, many years. I want to say 10 plus years. So me and my love of Spellbinders goes back many, many years. So I'm basically taping them in place. One of them will have to be, it's the same size as one of the skeletons, so I'll have to do that one separately. But I'm going to use the dies just to help create a layered look like we did on the first card. I'm loving this. I was going to use these all as separate videos, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to put them all in one for you guys. You can sit and watch three cards for 3 for 1. And I like this look because, one, I've embossed using the tan matte in my die cutter to create an embossed look with the not stencils, with the dies, which you can do with Spellbinder dies, and that now I'm putting that back in place so that I can use it as kind of like a stencil. So it's just such a cool thing. It's one of the many reasons I love Spellbinders. So I got those inked up. Don't forget, when you do something like this, don't forget to clean off your dies, otherwise you will have ink everywhere. And yeah, that could get real messy. So I decided to spritz everything, just again to give some texture and a bit more interest, because these are kind of, you'll see in a bit, they're going to go on a similar colour background, or pretty much the same colour background, because we're going to use one ink colour for the whole card. And so this is the other one. I decided not to tape it. I just kind of winged it and hope for the best. And then also spritzed it with some water and then mop up the excess. Some of them I just thought actually they need a bit more water, so I added a bit more and then just mopped it up with a paper towel. And then once I have those all done, I'll obviously clean my dies off later on. You can sort of see, and that wasn't slow enough, but you'll see at the end how they've all kind of got this extra texture on them. They've got the little white border, which makes it look like there's a layer, but there isn't actually a layer. And I just love it. I just think it's such a clever idea, very clever thing to do. So I've also inked my little sentiment strip as well. So now I'm going to take the same Dusty Concord and I'm going to go over the front of this card and over all the embossed areas, which is the front of the card. I just think this highlights all those beautiful words and you know, all the embossed detail on the card, and just gives it a nice look. You could also just take your do a direct to paper technique and just drag the ink across the whole embossed area, like we did on the first card, but I decided to do something a little different on this one, and I really like it. It turned out very purple. That sounded a bit funny. Yeah, it turns out very purple, but it's very cool. And you've got these sort of shiny bits that are red and gold, which I love. I just think it works really well together. So all I'm going to do is I had a rough idea of where I wanted to place everything, and I'm just going to use some wet adhesive because, again, well, for two reasons. One is you've got an embossed area, so sticking to an embossed or a raised area, you need something that's quite strong. So either stronger tape or a wet adhesive will work really well. And then also there's ink on there that's probably, when I was making this, wouldn't have been dry enough. So sometimes even a double-sided tape might not stick properly. So unless it's a very sticky tape, I would use a wet adhesive for something like this. And you could do the same thing without embossing the front of the card. You could emboss a piece of cardstock and stick it to the front of a card and do that as a separate piece, even if you cover the whole front of the card. But I wanted to do something a bit different, so and it's kind of, I feel like I'm going on a bit of an old school, I'm going to call it retro because I'm that old now, but I kind of feel like I'm going a bit back in time and trying to recreate some of the old techniques that we used to do, you know, like embossing the whole front of a card, or I can't think now, but in the next few videos you'll see what I mean. There's just these odd little things that I think, oh, that's kind of cool, but we obviously did it a long time ago. So what I wanted to do is, my sentiment was too, like, it was blending in too much into the background. So I used some, I think it was candied apple, just thinking of the red that's already in the card with the foiled areas. And I thought that kind of made sense to use a red just to highlight that. I didn't want to use black because there's no black on this card. So I decided to ink the edges with a red ink, just so that it just draws your eye in a little bit. It just highlights it ever so slightly, but it does actually make a difference. So I popped that up on some foam tape at the bottom, and then just using a paper towel to get any excess ink off the foiling, and that's card number 2. So for the last card, I used the Waffle Flower A2 dies. You guys know I love these, and the Spellbinders Spiderweb hot foil plate, as well as the bats and the sentiments from the same collection of that same year. And this is also one of the labels, I can't remember if it's labels 6 or 9, I can't remember. It's been so long. And again, I'm just popping that back in. I've already embossed it using the tan mat on my machine, and again, that's kind of an old school thing. And then I'm using hickory smoke on this card. I just thought this made sense. I've got 3 different kinds of colours of hot foil, and they're all on white cardstock. And I just thought, actually, let's just go for something kind of neutral-ish. So the other 2 cards were quite colourful, I thought. This one's more neutral. So I ink blended that piece with the bats, which I love, and then I'm taking some of the hickory smoke and just going along the top edge. I thought this gave this something else. Normally we go around the edges of everything, and I thought, actually, it's such a small piece. By the time I've got in there with a blending brush, I'm basically covering it. So I only did the top bit, and again just used my paper towel, that's the word, to get rid of the excess off the foil itself. And I think it gave it that sort of like an ombre but not ombre kind of look, and I actually really like it. So that was kind of a happy accident, if you like. And also going around the edges now of the main panel, this particular hot foil plate it's 1/2, so you foil it twice to get a whole frame, which I actually think is really clever, because one, it keeps the cost down of the plates themselves, because they can be kind of pricey if they're a full card front size, and 2, it means that you've got that option to either do half a frame, so sort of like almost like an archway, or a whole frame like this one. So I did the whole thing, as of course I would, so that's me, but you don't have to, and I think this is very cool. This is a holographic, I mean, look at that, holographic foil that I used on this one. The other thing I was going to mention is the white cardstock that I'm using is a Canson Bristol smooth paper. It's not meant for it's meant for like pens and pencils. I try anything with anything. This is how I roll. You guys know that. You guys have been here long enough. You know that's what I do. So I actually tried it, one with the hot foiling. It works perfectly. It's so beautiful. It's so good. And it also works obviously with the machine I have. And I've actually recently used Copics on it, and it works beautifully with that too. And it cuts out in my Scan and Cut like a dream. Anyway, that's an upcoming video. You'll see that soon. So what I decided to do was I stuck the spiderweb straight onto a white card base, and then I popped up the bats, and I'm also going to pop up the 2 sentiments. There's not an awful lot going on this card, so I thought by popping up a few of the elements, or in fact all of the elements, it would just sort of be a fun, something a little different kind of card. But I think it's still cute, and I literally just kind of went haphazardly and just went, right, that's going there, and then this one's going here. So, and that's where they stuck. But I like it. It's got the holographic, the gold and the red, and I just think it works really well. And it's very, very easy and very simple to do. So here's a look at the first card where we embossed the background and used an old school straight, direct to paper technique over the embossing area, and kind of created a moon. Then the next one is very purple, and just a kind of like a spotlight on all these cute, skeletons and bats and ghost girls. And then the final one being the holographic spiderwebs and bats. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this, guys, and happy Halloween and happy fall, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.